We're a Kiwi couple living in Australia who brought a 57-foot steel trawler after she sunk in a flood and was pulled from the sea. We're now bringing her back to life. We're on to the finishing jobs after working on her for the last 6 years to refit and get her ready for launch as soon as possible. Brupeg is rebuilt by us with volunteers funded by Patreons and viewers, and we spend every cent we have to make sure that she's ready. She's fueled by veggie oil, diesel, solar and wind power to do research, projects and expeditions to remote places like Antarctica and the Northwest Passage. She'll be crewed by supporters from around the world. Welcome aboard. Crikey, bro. It's pretty wet and wild weather out there at the moment. That's sort of what's going on outside, so it's a little bit wet. There we go, look at the stuff coming off the neighbour's boat. And the yard, it's drained off now, but it flooded not that long ago. Basically, it means that it's pretty impossible to work outside at the minute. As if on cue, the thunder happens. So I will be working inside today. I've got quite a bit of stuff I need to do in the freezer room. We've got to fix a couple of seacocks that I put in years and years ago, putting them in the wrong place now that we've got the interior in, so we're going to move that so that they're functional. We're also going to be welding up some stainless skin fittings that need to go into the side of the hull for these seacocks, and also fitting our ambulance cabinets. They are the cabinets sitting just over there, so we need to get those into the room. Let's get cracking. To orientate you where we are, these are the stairs that lead down from the saloon into the freezer room. That's the watertight bulkhead door that goes into the engine room. And then on this side, we've got the first double cabin, and then we've got the twin single over this side. That's a single, but will be a twin single. What we need to do today is deal with some stuff on the side of the boat. So you can see that white PVC pipe that goes down and sort of joins up and heads under the bed. That is going to be dealt with today. This garbage that's everywhere all over this room, this is a storage room at the moment, is going to be basically cleaned up. This is just a whole bunch of stuff piled in here. And finally, see that white pipe hanging out the side of the hull and the smaller one over that side there? They need to go. So the small one is the old shower drain, and this one here, the larger one, is the old toilet drain. So that's above the waterline, but they need to go. So we're going to be cutting those out and putting in a piece of plate. We're also going to be moving some seacocks. Finally, at the very front, we're going to be adding in a bit of storage. So we do have our white ambulance cabinets. They need to be mounted at the very front of this room, so we've got some lockable storage in this room before we hit the water. One of the challenges of a project like Brupeg that runs as long as it has in the build stage is you have to design on the fly. 6 years ago, when we thought we knew the layout of this boat, we put in some skin fittings and seacocks into the freezer room behind me, thinking that it would be a bunk layout. We thought this room was going to have about 8 single bunks laid around the perimeter, with essentially one big room, basically no internal dividers like we've done, etc. So in order to accommodate that, the bunks are going to be on the side of the boat, and we put the skin fittings as low as we possibly could into the boat so that we could just lift the floorboards and access them. Great idea at the time. It's not going to work now because we've completely changed the internal layout. So now we have separate cabins, we have divider walls, we have storage, we have a whole bunch of stuff going on that we never planned for. I think the layout that we have now is miles better than the original one. The original one wasn't ever going to work, but we didn't know that at the time. However, what that means is we have to modify the side of the boat now. So where I just showed you those pipes and so forth, we need to basically redirect those from going underneath the berth where the seacock is located now. It's in a position that's impossible to get to. If we ever need to close that seacock off, we've got to pull half the bed apart basically to get there. So no way, that's not going to work. We need these to be able to be accessed within a few seconds, and to do that we're just going to lift them up the hull so that they're above the top of the bottom bed and below the bottom of the top bed, if that makes sense. There's a gap between the two. We're going to locate it smack in the middle so it's real easy to get to.
There's a couple of jobs happening simultaneously in this episode. The cabinets going in the downstairs cabin, and the seacocks also getting made and welded in.
After careful deliberations, Jess and I figured out where we're putting these seacocks. You can see the layout of the pipes a bit better now. We've got our shower drains coming down from the deck head, and then we've got our main, this big diameter one here is our main pipe that takes waste out of the boat and goes underneath this bed, and roughly here somewhere is a seacock. Obviously it's not accessible at the moment. So what we need to do is put it in this area, just in here. So I want to increase the diameter of these pipes. They're annoying, they block up. I'm not really that happy with them. I want to bring them up to this size here. But I'm going to do all of that above this line here. So I'm going to have my seacock around here. That allows me to access it no matter what's going on. The mattress will come up to about here maximum. I'll put the seacock somewhere in this line area here, and that way it'll be, once we put our insulation in, the seacock will actually be behind the insulation, so we'll have a little door that we can access it. But that's going to be a really simple place for us to get to no matter what. Insulation inside a steel boat can be a tricky subject. There's a few ways to do it right and a lot of ways to do it wrong. Above the waterline, it's treated different than below the waterline. Above the waterline, it's pretty normal just to sandblast your steel, paint it, and then put spray on 2-pack expanding foam straight onto that steel, and it basically just fills up any gaps and so on and creates a layer of insulation. That's a really good way to insulate a boat in terms of thermal protection and so on. There's some chemicals that release out of it. We did a lot of research into this when we were looking at what insulation to use on the boat. There are some chemicals that can release out of it, and those chemicals releasing out of it basically reduce the effectiveness of that spray and foam over its life. So I don't want to take the health risk because of Jess. So we had to do a different way, and that's why we're doing the polystyrene. The insulation below the waterline is treated completely differently. So you have to make sure that you allow for condensation, because you're going to go and get it in a steel boat. As soon as you go into a cold environment or a hot environment, you're going to get condensation, and you have to allow that to basically run away from the hull and the insulation and not affect either. So you have to paint your hull well. We've done that already. You need to then allow a gap between the hull and the insulation. So Brupeg used to have this room insulated below the waterline as a freezer room, and we're just going to copy the way that they did that. This is how they did it. You take small blocks of timber, and you can see it was glued in that area there, one on either side. And there's another lot down here. You see what they've done is formed a wedge pattern, so any water running down the hull comes down, runs along to the end of the timber, and then starts dropping straight down the centre here and goes down into the bilge. On top of those blocks of timber, they were about 1 inch thick, so there's about 1 inch gap between the hull and the next layer. The next layer is a piece of 3 or 4 mil hardwood ply, and that just goes straight over top and is screwed into these battens. These are just glued onto the hull, and the plywood is just screwed onto these battens. At that point, you can start stacking foam up. They had, I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 inches thick of foam. It was quite thick in here. And then on top of that foam, this is basically the same sort of foam that we'd use for like fiberglass core in boats. I don't know what exactly it was, but it was, that same sort of stuff. I've seen it before. I've never really used it much myself. On top of that foam, they basically started glassing. So they had, let me think about it, they had a 1/2 inch ply on top of that foam, and then they started putting fiberglass on top of that plywood. So that plywood had about 6 or 8 mil of fiberglass chop strand mat on top of the plywood, and that was their freezer room. So that lasted 40 odd years. In fact, when we ripped this room apart, underneath this new paint that we've put in, when we sandblasted this room out, you could actually see the writing from when they built Brupeg, so it was in that good a condition. So there was some rust and a few other bits and pieces, but that was a separate issue that caused that. And that's basically how we're going to do our installation in here, is duplicate what they did for the freezer room layout. One of the side effects of having a real good clean up around Brupeg is all of our tools are either in the engine room or they've gone. I went to cut some aluminium. I need to cut these little strips, and I don't have a drop saw anymore that I'd normally use, the old timber drop saw, or a metal drop saw that we'd use in the metal workshop. So we're going to have to cut this with a wood skill saw. So this is going to be fun. These are basically load spacers. They're going to act like a washer. They'll have a hole drilled in them, and they spread the load over a portion of area in these cupboards. This is our ambulance cupboard, or one of our ambulance cupboards that we found at the scrapyard. Normally they mount with these 2 holes. There's 3 of these, one at each end, one in the middle. And what we need to do is use these, but on the underside there's a rail. You can see that rail either side. I was originally just going to have a pad that goes through between them before I realised that rail was there. So these here going to go up like that. So they'll act just like a washer, just with a hole through them, and then we can put a bolt from this side through and screw them into the actual boat itself. And on the boat, we're going to make some stainless brackets that these will screw up into. We're going to use stainless because that way we don't have to paint them when they're in. We can just TIG them in, put a little bit of paint over top of the weld, and we're good to go. Now that we've got our alloy washers, it's time to make our stainless brackets. Two pieces of stainless, they're not square. They're going to sit like that, and then I've cut and buffed a piece of stainless angle that'll get welded like that, and then onto that surface there, this will be welded to the boat, and this here is going to be the face that the aluminium cabinets bolt to. So I'm going to pop a couple of 6mm holes in here, and we'll be good to go. With these plates done, I'm going to put them to the side. Time for these things. These pieces of 316 stainless form the skin fitting. So we take one of these cast 90s and one of these threaded machined pieces of stainless pipe, take that on there like that, and you've got yourself a beautiful little through hole with a nice thread at the end. So we put an 1.5 inch ball valve on the end of here. Now, being stainless, we obviously have to protect that just like we would with the mild steel. It's underwater, so we have to make sure we protect it from corrosion. So you can sort of see inside it's been roughed up, like sanded up, etc. And we're going to epoxy that inside and also put some anti-foul. When we go to do the rest of the boat, we'll be, piling anti-foul up there as well. So all of this needs to be protected just as you would with mild steel. People do panic about having stainless below the waterline on boats, and it can be a problem if it's not protected properly, but that's what your anodes are for. Anodes basically remove the risk of corrosion because they're sacrificial. They take that risk themselves. So you replace your anodes as often as you need to so that you protect all of the various parts, the various metal basically underneath the hull, be that a stainless shaft, a bronze propeller, or a mild steel hull. Welcome back to Brupeg's secret lair. I need to start tigging these brackets together. So we've got the little angle bracket going onto the flat stainless plate that we made. We've also got these through hole fittings that we need to knock up. So I basically cleaned everything up and got the welding ready to go. I've got a pile of new tungstens. I think it's time to do a bit of welding. Quick check of the internal alignment. Jess and I had a powwow about where we're going to be putting these. This is a skin fitting, essentially welded up together, ready to go, and then a ball valve, or a 316 ball valve. That assembly is known as a seacock. So we need to figure out where we're going to put that. Originally, we were going to utilise the piping here and put it somewhere in that area there. However, the trouble is that it's not real deep underwater, and the angle of the hull is quite flat, so it's just going to push whatever straight out sideways. We wanted it to go down if we can.
This is grey water, right?
Yeah, this is grey water, yep. So what we're thinking is actually moving it forward 2 ribs and going into this area here. The reason being is because there's going to be nothing built over that. So over this end you're going to have like storage, wardrobe, bunk, there's going to be stuff in here. And we don't want seacocks buried behind stuff. We want it to be open and accessible. So by putting it in here, there's literally just a wall panel going to be in there, so we can put a little cutout, make it really accessible and easy to get to, and there's no chance that we're ever going to build something over top of that because it's too close to the bed level. So I think it's a good compromise in the end.
Have you explained where the water line is? And for anyone who doesn't know, over here is the wood line. Yep, the Dame's just pointing to it. So it's quite high up. Down here is where we're going to put the seacock that Dame's building at the moment. And up, just so you can get the comparison, this is the water line here. Dame and I have changed the placement for the bunk. We're going to put it at the front of the cabin. It works better for the space. It'll be short, but it'll have storage underneath.
Very precisely located. By the way, these are all magnets because I don't want lots and lots of swarf in the bilge. So by sticking bucket loads of magnets around, you get a pretty good chance of sort of zapping everything onto the magnets rather than into your bilge. And now the neodymium ones, which are the big angry ones. So I've gone through and given that a clean. That's nice and shiny, ready to weld. Should probably give the outside a razz up too. A trick I learned years ago when rebuilding engines, that's what I did for a job, was when you're cleaning out a cylinder bore, or in this case a piece of steel that you've just ground that you need to be cleaned, it's not clean until you can bring it out a white rag and it has to come out white, so that needs more cleaning. So I'm bringing out red, which is the NFL colour on the outside underneath that silver paint we have. So I just keep cleaning, and I'm using acetone to get any rubbish out, but I just keep going until I can basically bring it out and I don't get any marks out of it. So you can't do it dry, you have to do it, you know, with some sort of cleaning on there. So in this case acetone, but if you're doing a cylinder bore or something on an engine, you'd use something like CRC or WD-40. Can use engine oil, but it's nowhere near as good. Diesel works. But yeah, again, it has to come out basically clean.
I don't want to go parallel to the hull. I want to cock it out a little bit like that. That even, do you think that is pretty good? So that looks that right, eh?
Quite a big gap.
Yeah, I can fill that. Just take the time and fill it up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Strength matters, so I made some nice bulbous big welds. They're not the prettiest, but they won't fall off. These are mild steel, they're just glued on. With aluminium, there's no way of easily joining it metal to metal, so they've just put a couple of dabs of glue on. But they're right where I need to put a bracket, so they've got to come off.
What just came back? Oh. 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 Little fairy.
It should come as no surprise that the lounge is once again a workshop, because I'm fitting this. This is going into the downstairs double cabin. This is one of our ambulance cabinet things that we found at the Scrappy. I think we paid 20 bucks for this. Awesome deal, because it's a really good piece of kit. We've made a little bracket that you saw. We welded this up on the bench. That's our angle, that's our flat. We've got a nut on that side, and then on the underside you can see there's a aluminium, just like a washer that I built with a cap screw, so that's holding either side of that rail, and that allows the rail to still be used, because the rail bolts these things on and you can move them wherever you want. So they're pretty handy to have in a cupboard on a boat, stop stuff going everywhere. But what I plan to do is put a single bolt there, and I'll do another bracket down here somewhere, put a single bolt in that, and then we'll hold it up against the roof and adjust it to the ribs. I'll clamp them onto the ribs and then unbolt the cabinet, take this away, and we can weld the stainless onto the boat properly. If you look really closely, you'll see that I don't have any wall panels or insulation in this room, but I need to factor that in. So I've made a little analog for a wall. This piece of timber here, basically what this is going to be the surface of my wall. I'm going to use this piece that's just screwed onto it to basically move it in and out, get it the right measurement, and clamp it to a rib. And then I'll clamp the top to a rib. I can stick it behind the cabinets, and then that'll give me an analog for where the wall's going to be, and then I'll know where the brackets have to go. Yeah.
You done?
That's that one done.
No, I can't listen. Then you'll have to do that. Oh, I definitely can't do that.
Oh shit, you're right?
Yep. I shouldn't have tried.
Sorry, I didn't even think about that. You okay?
Oh.
Yeah, clear everything. You okay?
Yeah. Some angles I just know that things are going to go.
Yeah.
I was stupid, I shouldn't have tried it.
We'll come and clamp this end, and then we can start adjusting it. Right, how's it sitting? We've got heaps of room for pipe work, which is good.
Jeez, that looks amazing.
That's roughly where it's going to sit.
It really isn't shrinking the room at all.
Yeah, we just need to level it.
Okay.
Or not.
Is it perfect.
It's pretty perfect.
Yeah, I was thinking it looks pretty good.
Like
Slightly.
It's like you could do that and it would be better. Down. Yeah, we're going to go out probably, because I'm up against the wall there, so we have to go out probably another
At the top?
centimetre. Yeah, come out at the top there. About a centimetre. That's as high as we can go basically, that's where it has to sit. Is the angle on the inside or this side or the other side?
That side.
Okay.
Ooh.
If I mount that there.
Is it not long enough?
No, it's just long enough.
Huh?
I thought I had 20 mil on there as spare, but I didn't have 20 mil at all. But it's alright, I don't need any. I just need to run a weld across there, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, you're welding it?
Yes, these get welded to this,
Ah.
and then they get bolted to that.
Ah.
That's why I got to fart around some.
Yeah. I thought they were just all bolted.
No.
Okay. You don't need me for a bit, do you?
No.
Okay, let's keep it up.
Thanks, love. Through a bit of trial, figured out exactly where these brackets need to go. So I've nipped this one up just with a single bolt. That one down there's got a single bolt. What I need to do now is clean off where I have to weld. So just up in that sort of area of the rib, and then same deal, just up in that area there. I need to clean those back to metal, so I'll just use the die grinder to do that. Get that back, and then we're able to put this back up, clamp it in position and put a couple of tacks on there, and then unbolt it from the white frame, and we can start welding these in properly. Yep, and I think the bottom of that has to get tipped. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's just...
Wait, I'm just going to realize this.
Yeah. Can you throw that blue clamp over there? Yeah. Like it's within a millimetre. Like it honestly wouldn't. You could leave it at that. That's fine. Okay, and we're out that way, so we have to. How's that? That's straight there. Okay, and that's good there. So.
Done?
Yeah. That's it. I managed to get a couple of tacks in like each corner on this thing here. However, the welder's doing weird stuff. If I fire this up, it's set for TIG at the minute, so 150 amps, but when I pull the trigger, wherever it is, pull the trigger, it'll hold to 150 without too much drama, without touching the metal. As soon as I touch the metal, it drops down to like 8 amps.
Drop, drop, drop. It's down to 7.
Yeah, right.
Huh.
So that's what it's been doing.
Didn't get wet or anything?
There's nothing that's happened to it. It's something weird, I don't know. I'm assuming it's a software thing. I phoned the people that we bought it from and they put me in touch with the Australian agent, but the phone cut out on me, so I haven't been able to really get any sort of diagnosis from them, but I managed to be able to tell him what's going on, and he said, that's weird, and then the phone cut out. So at least I've clarified it's weird, I suppose, you know, silver lining. Yeah.
This is no longer under warranty.
It's no longer under warranty. Yeah. So anyway. I think we'll limp it through this job and then have to come up with a solution. There was a software thing that they changed last time and it fixed a whole bunch of stuff that the machine was doing, so you can update this machine quite well with just changing the software. So I don't know, maybe there's a glitch in it or something, but the weird thing is that it's like it's only just started, so that's what makes me think something funny is going on. Like, hold the weight. As I undo this, it's going to try and lower itself. You're right. Be able to push it up. Okay, got it. I got the weight. Yep, we cleared it. Okay. welded, but I just felt all of the electricity go through my arm, so I think I'll stop now.
I've said it many times. I would change my ways, I know for sure. When all the crows decide.
Ben Luckcraft found all these for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. I know it's been a while.
We do still plan to put them on the roof.
Yeah. So everything has its timeline.
Our 7 of 8 solar panel system has been out there for many years now.
Here with me by the fire and let it go for
Come on, baby. They both look a little bit young, don't they?
let my fingers walk over your head. We got nothing to be scared of. I'd rather be with you than by myself. Now always in your hand.
Blimey.
Strong, aren't they?
Yep. Crikey.
It had to happen once.
Yep.
Geez, they're strong.
They are pretty stupidly strong, these things.
Will lead me to an ending road. And heavy metal seemed to be the only thing that was for me. And I saw the angels coming down, and they sang a song and sang it loud. And I still remember parts of it, and the yellow glorious will won't you be?
This motor off a jet ski is for our jet dinghy. This is the second dinghy build. We'll do this once we've hit the water. Might take a little while before we're organised. We're cutting off the last of the hull just to make it easier to use. We're keeping some of it on, so it's like a bit of a sled. We can move the motor around. Look forward to this build.
Always in our hands. Always in our hands. Always in our
But also I'm wondering about...
I'll get the front off too.
Yeah, you could probably cut right across.
Yeah,
there, eh?
definitely. Yep. I've already started cutting
Oh, lovely, yeah.
down in there. You can sort of see
Just
the
see there.
cut marks.
Yeah.
And now I'm stuck in the mud till you realize. Oh, I can see the bright from the sky in the morning light. Light from the sky burning. bright from the sky in the morning light from the sky.
This is the hull for the jet dinghy. This motor is 110 horsepower 3-cylinder Kawasaki. You can see how it's going to be placed. It's going to stick out the back a little bit. It's going to be sunk in the floor. We're going to take the floor out and sink it in. The hull is rated for 10 people, and we're going to make aluminium pontoons like we did on the small electric dinghy.
So if it's doing that, then the wire's going to, and if I stop the trigger and then try and start again, it's going to basically burn up the wire, isn't it? Not feed it. It's going to be live, but it won't feed the wire.
It's been a good week. We've accomplished a lot. We've decided on the final launch list and the launch date. We'll share that with you next week. See ya.